Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the latest episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show. As usual, with me, Joe Redmond, and this week, obviously, we've got Leicester coming up on Wednesday, the 3rd of March. It will be at Turf Moor, 6 p.m. It's Chris from Leicester Till I Die TV. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm all right, Joe. How the devil are you, sir?
Yeah, good. Thank you, mate. First things first, I just want to tell everybody, obviously, this is the first pre-game show we've done for quite a while. I've been very busy with work. A couple of weeks I've had to do 50 hours. So unfortunately, the pre-game shows had to be the one that I've had to knock on the head. But we've still done the watch-alongs and we've still done the podcasts. I've still done the match reaction and we've still managed to get the fan reactions out. So I think you could all sort of like agree that that's one hell of a monumental effort. And let's not forget, I have a toddler downstairs and he is incredibly hard work. So I think it's a very good effort for me. But yeah, the pre-game show is back because there's only 30 hours at work this week. So I'm delighted, as I said, to welcome Chris onto the show. And again, first things first, Chris, just sort of like, I don't normally do this, but obviously I want to sort of like get a little bit more to know about you, or should I say, let the viewers know a little bit more about you. Because, of course, it is something that we can all relate to. You lived in Burnley for quite a few years. 25 years, was it, you lived in Burnley?
25 years, almost man and boy. Yeah, I mean, from Leicester originally. Left there with my job and I did a tour of the Northwest. I did Blackpool, Blackburn, dare I say that word. I know.
I've got to cancel this podcast now, you've swore.
Sorry. It's got stuck in my throat there. Bolton. And so what I did, basically I did all the B's. And for 25 years, I had all my 4 kids in Burnley. They grew up, thankfully, on the right side and supported Leicester. I've now moved. Well, it was Chris Waddle. It was Chris Waddle who was manager when I was taking them along.
I could understand why the Leicester fans. Well, unfortunately, I did end up going through that era and supporting the Clarets. But yeah, it were a tough time. But yeah. Burnley's a good place to be born. I was born there. All 4 of your kids were born there. Harvey Barnes was born there. So, it's not a bad thing, is it?
No, and I love Burnley, and I've still got many friends, and we have a lot of banter between us and Burnley. I used to help run one of my boys' football teams up in Pendle Forest, and yeah, it was a lovely place. And I've got to be honest with you here, out of everywhere, and I've moved around the country a lot with my job. I'm now down on the south coast, but Burnley were probably the nicest people from wherever I actually lived. Lovely, friendly people.
Yeah, I think everyone who's from Burnley listening / watching this will totally agree with you. We're all we like to enjoy a beer, we enjoy good crack, and we're all lovely, and we'll talk to anyone.
That's the last nice thing I'm going to say about you, by the way.
Well, until after Wednesday, I presume. You work at the Burnley Express as well. Now, I didn't actually know this. Like, I knew you lived in Burnley because obviously we're in like a Twitter group for those that don't know of YouTubers and YouTube fan TV things. So you had mentioned you were from, not from Burnley, lived in Burnley, but you said you worked at the Burnley Express as well. Now, I worked at the Burnley Express as well for a year and a half.
No.
So what were you doing at the Burnley Express?
I worked in sales. So I was on classified sales. This was when the office was down just off the
Bull Street
centre.
Yeah, Bull Street. It's only recently moved. Moved. It's not far from my house now, the new office.
Right. It's up on an industrial estate, I think, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. I live just around the corner from that industrial. It was only been there a couple of years. It was on Bull Street until very, very recently. When I worked there, it was on Bull Street.
The Big Window. It was opposite the Big Window pub.
Yeah, the Big Window's still there. The Big Window's still there.
The Big Window's still there. The haunt of many at the Burnley Express. But the last time, and we did touch on this because we've just done, obviously, my version of this before we've done this back to back. The last time I was actually up in Burnley was from a birthday. And I came up and I hadn't been up for a while. And I don't know if you remember Janet Fallon. I think she still works at the Burnley Express.
The name rings a bell.
Yes.
The name does ring a bell.
She was in display sales. I was in classified. And she, she was really lovely. I mean, I stayed at the hotel up near as you just come off the double roundabouts. There's like a cheap hotel there. And she ferried me all about. And she took me along to the game. And I was in hospitality, so I had the nice Burnley FC hospitality with the buy one get one free guy.
Oh, Jeff Brown.
Yeah, and there was only me that was, because we beat you that day with as I said to you, didn't I, with an amazing goal from Chris Wood, who was then playing for us. And there was only me that was stood up. One of those moments when you stood up, because you scored, forgetting where you are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because obviously I like I said, I worked at the Burnley Express, and I ended up going into sort of like media and things like I'm doing now, because I spent a couple of weeks work experience at the Burnley Express when I was 15. So you could have been in that office somewhere at that point. So that would have been, what year would that have been? That would have been 2003, 2004. I was sat on the sports desk with Edward Lee, Chris Borden, who's obviously still there. Yeah, Borden's still there. Phil Simpson and a lad called Ade. And I can't remember Ade's last name. I think he had like a sort of like a Polish last name.
Phil Simpson. Do you still keep in touch with him?
I've got him on Facebook. That's about as far as it goes.
Just ask him how he enjoyed his first ever Burnley Express Christmas party.
Did it go? Right, I will do. I'll leave that there. I don't want to embarrass him too much. But
I work with his sister on sales, Helen Simpson. If I can give it a plug, LeicesterTillIDie.com. And there's a written version of this on the website. And he usually does that for me, Chris Bowden still. But he's kind of busy at the moment. So there's a guy called Dan Black's helping out. But Edward Lee,
Dan's there as well, yeah.
Edward Lee, just to sidetrack very briefly, he was actually helped me out because, and I'll show my age here, but back in the day when football clubs only had one mascot, my two sons were mascot for Leicester, both at Burnley games, away to Burnley.
That's good. Well, that's good. Yeah. When I did my work experience in 2003, Edward Lee were there then. And he was the chief sports editor at the time. And then when I went back for an actual job in 2016, 2017, whatever it was, he was still there then. He was still there. I was like, I remember you. But again, I didn't want to embarrass him too much because I was showing his age. But anyway, we're doing a pre-game show and I've not even talked about the game at any point. So let's move on. Let's move on and talk about the game.
You can edit it out. You can edit it out.
Yeah, I'll keep it all in. I don't care. That's what people come for. They come for the realism. But just talk to me about your season so far then, because from the outside looking in, until you recently showed me your recent run of fixtures, I thought you would start the season well, but kind of fallen away. But it's literally just one game where you've had a bit of a bad result last time out against Arsenal. But yeah, you're in okay form at the minute, aren't you? And in an okay place in the league table.
We're in an okay place in the table, certainly, and I think it's been an inconsistent season. You know, we can turn up against Chelsea, we can turn up against Aston Villa, and we can play like Barcelona, Real Madrid, and then we can turn up against Arsenal, Fulham, and we can play, no disrespect, say like Rochdale. It's thing is, every other club that's around us, apart from Man City now, who had their blip at the start, every other club is as inconsistent as we are. You know, Chelsea have come good, but that might be the new manager syndrome, so that might sort of wear off a bit. Man United only managed to draw the other day, so they could have pulled away from us. City, they had a bad start. We beat them 5-2 at their place. You know, my worry is remembering last season when we fell away totally and ended up being fifth when we should have been sort of in the top four in Champions League. And the worry is that that's going to happen again, especially, you know, you hear these clubs say, oh, there's injuries and we've got all these injuries and all these first teamers out. You know, I know every club's like that in the Premier League at the moment. It's the way the season has panned out because having to play so many games. I think there's so many injuries and there's no consistency there. But am I happy with where I am? Yes. Am I happy that we're out the Europa League? No, because I want to win as many games as we can, obviously, but we were never going to win the damn thing. So that will do us better in the Premier League. We've got one less cup competition to think about. So there is that. They'll concentrate on the league. But no, I'm happy. I'm happy with where we are at the moment if I'm not happy with the odd performance.
Yeah, fair enough. You touched on it briefly there. It's been a weird season in terms of Injuries, everyone has suffered with injuries, and it's the clubs sort of outside the big six, should I say? I don't want to say top six because obviously that's where you would like to cement yourselves now. But it's the clubs outside the big six that seem to be struggling the most with it. Obviously, Liverpool fans would argue that they've struggled the most and had the most injuries, but you could argue that they've had squad depth. And teams like Burnley, for example, don't. So talk to me about your current injury situation, because it's quite an extensive list, isn't it? And I wasn't aware how bad the list was. I saw that Harvey Barnes went off injured at the weekend against Arsenal. And although it's weird, like we kind of like Harvey Barnes in Burnley because obviously he's the son of Paul Barnes and he was born in Burnley. But a lot of us are sort of like thinking, oh, well, that's very good news for us because he's a very, very good footballer.
It is good news for you.
Yeah, so talk to me about that injury list because it is quite extensive.
Pull a chair up, get a drink. Here we go. Are you sitting comfortably? Yeah, I mean, it is good news for you as much as you don't want to see any player being injured.
Yeah,
excuse me. Jamie Vardy hasn't been on fire recently. He's not scored for a while, but it kind of got glossed over because even when he plays, he takes a couple of defenders with him. And you had Maddison and you had Barnes who were knocking the goals in from behind him. Maddison's out. His natural replacement, Dennis Pratt, is also out. So we're having a problem with that number 10 role. Harvey Barnes, as you saw, went off. He's having to have an operation on his knee, so it might even ruin his England chances.
Yeah, that is a shame. I was looking forward to seeing him in an English shirt.
Yeah. Iosi Perez, he could probably do that number 10 role. He's out. Fofana, he's certainly out. He's not going to be back for Wednesday, and he's been a revelation since we bought him. Jamie Vardy's still, he's not 100% from his hip hop. I prefer garage, but he likes hip hop. He's 75% chance of playing, so fingers crossed for us for that. Johnny Evans, he went off. He's 50%. He went off with a little bit of a niggle. And where's Morgan? So I think we've got a few tea ladies that could pull a shirt on and play for us.
Yeah, well, I think I said on your podcast, didn't I? It's going to be the battle of the walking wounded because obviously you're on about putting tea ladies out. At the minute, we've had to put a couple of youngsters on. We've got a lad called Joel Mumbongo who's had to play up front a couple of times for us, admittedly coming off the bench, but still. And Lewis Richardson, he came off the bench against Spurs at the weekend. He does look who's going to be quite decent in the future, to be fair. They both look decent, but I was impressed with Lewis Richardson at the weekend. All right, admittedly, he only came on and won a couple of corners, but, he showed more, like desire is the right word to want to be able to do something. But
that's the only thing that is positive for us as well, is that we've got this huge new training ground that's been built.
I have seen that. It looks lovely.
It's up there with Man City's is one of the best in Europe. I mean, if we don't buy any players this season, you've got to look and go, yeah, well, that's probably where the money's gone. But what it is doing is we've got such a good squad of youngsters coming through. We've got quite a few that are out on loan at the moment. But we've got young Luke Thomas, who's been playing left back, because we had James Justin, like I say, he's injured, but he's had a great season. But, Luke Thomas has come on in that position. And he's played in Europe. He's scored in Europe. So, he's a youngster, but he can play. We've got Daley Campbell, who we got in the squad from Arsenal. He's sort of still in the youth system coming through. We've got a guy called Tavares. For those of us of a certain age will know it's not the pop group. He's the player, but he's got Barcelona and Real Madrid and clubs like that are sniffing round him. And it's a question about whether we'll be able to hold on to him or not. But he looks like a talent. So we have got that youth coming through. And don't be surprised to see a couple of them playing on Wednesday night.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how Dwight McNeil came through our ranks. Obviously, he's now arguably our most creative player. Again, he's another one that's had a bit of a quiet season. Obviously, I was talking to you on your show about Chris Wood and how he's had a quiet season. But if it weren't for the injuries, Dwight McNeil wouldn't have come through and burst onto the scene that season 3 seasons ago. So fingers crossed we can find the next Dwight McNeil. But yeah, it is going to be a bit of a strange one. Fingers crossed Chris Wood is back. But I do want to talk about Chris Wood because obviously he played for you boys not so long ago. Like you said, he scored a goal at Turf Moor, quite a good goal. I remember the goal because I remember being quite frustrated when it went in. Is the political way of saying it. But one of the most frustrating things is every time I want to edit a picture of Chris Wood or edit a Turfcast thumbnail and put Chris Wood in it, you type in Chris Wood Burnley. It's one of the first 10 pictures that comes up. Him celebrating, scoring against Burnley. Like he's been at Burnley for God knows how long. But yeah, talk to me about Chris Wood then, because he did quite well at Leicester, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we bought him. I think it was from Millwall, and I remember doing a graphic because he'd got a couple of goals. He got 6 in a game. You know, I had him as a gunslinger. You know, the 6 shooters in town, and we've got him. And he came as a really, really, really hot prospect, and we got promoted to the Premier League, and I believe he actually scored our first goal for Leicester back in the Premier League against Everton, got us a point. But unfortunately, Jamie Vardy was just developing at that point. You know, he'd had a good season the season before when we got promoted. I think you came up with us that season because you finished second, I think, didn't you?
Yes, we did, yeah. But then obviously that season we got relegated. But the game that always to me is the one that sent us down, with the game we lost against you at Turf Moor. We missed a penalty, and then you went up the other end and scored with Jamie Vardy. Who else but Jamie
Vardy off his knee, I believe. Yeah, but no, I love Chris Wood. And I wish we'd still got him as a squad player because I think he could do a job for you. But, you know, it's always a problem. Jamie Vardy didn't start the first few games when we were in the Premier League. We had the Man United game, the 5-3. He was just, it was amazing. And the rest is history. And, you know, we've lost Chris Wood. We lost Kramaric, who's gone to Hoffenheim. And, you know, he played for Croatia in the World Cup final. You know, we've let these players go because you can't not play Jamie Vardy. That's the problem. Yeah. But no, I love Chris Wood. I still wish we'd got Chris Wood. I would love to have him in the squad. He might not play every week, I say because of Vardy, but I'd love to have him in the squad.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a slow season. I'll be honest, but I love Chris Wood as well. I'm always fighting Chris Wood's corner. I've said before, it's a hill I'll happily die on to say that Chris Wood is our best striker. And I think that the recent games with Vidra playing and Jay playing and Barnsley playing, even though Barnsley did well and Jay did well against Palace, to be fair. But if you look at them games as a whole, I think, again, it's just proving the point that Chris Wood is the best striker. It's just a shame he's so out of form this season. He needs to find some form and he needs to find it fast because we're in a bit of a dogfight, I think it's fair to say.
He likes to score against us, though. So
he scored against you earlier this season. He scored against you, I think, last season as well.
He likes the goal against us.
Yeah, he does. You're right. But fingers crossed he can do it again tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow at the time that you're all watching this on Turfcast. Talk to me about sort of like outside looking in, how you're viewing Burnley's season. Like, do you think we are sort of like where we deserve to be, or were you shocked at seeing Burnley's sort of like position in the league? Do you think we should be knocking the door of the top off? Sort of like, how do you view the Burnley season?
It's weird. I mean, I asked you sort of the same sort of question on my show, and as you said, the table doesn't lie. You know, we all are where we are, whether it's a surprise that you're doing well or a surprise that you're doing bad. I always, like I said, keep an eye out for Burnley results because I've got a lot of mates and there's a lot of banter between us if one of us wins and the other one loses. I'm surprised where you are in as much as, you know, when you look at it, you're actually only 5 points off the bottom 3. And the way this season is going, anybody can beat anybody. It's that sort of season, you know. Sheffield United could go up to Man City and beat there. It's just that sort of season. So you're not safe, unfortunately. And I'm surprised that you're down there. You've got a great manager in Sean Dyche. You know, he was linked with us a few times when we've changed our manager. It's you know, a club that you should move on. And I mean, I've said this about Leicester, is that we finished 5th last year. If we finish 5th this year, is that a bad season? Now, for me, no, it's not. because we're slowly improving, and that's what you've got to look at doing. You've got to look at improving. There comes a point when you can't improve anymore, and whether that is fifth, sixth for most of us outsiders, you said the big six, but I expected more of you. I mean, you had the problem with the Europa League year. I mean, you got into Europe, you're in the Europa League, you struggled with that and the Premier League.
Definitely.
You struggled that season. In fairness, not just Burnley, a lot of clubs had done up until Wolves last season and us this season, but it does take it out of you. And I would look, I'd look at Burnley and think you should be a top half team.
I agree with that. I say at the start of every year, like you mentioned it there, you should always want to try and improve, and I think that's the mentality that I went into this season as a Burnley fan thinking that we've just finished 10th at that stage. 2 of the last 3 seasons we finished in the top half. The only season we hadn't finished in the top half was the season that we were struggling with Europa League, and as you say, it's very difficult to play Thursday, Sunday. All right, we only played 6 Europa League games, but we had to play Aberdeen before the season had even started, and then you were playing Southampton, then you were playing Aberdeen again, and then you were travelling all the way to Turkey, which is a long way, and then you've got to come all the way back, play again, and all the way to Greece. We didn't recover from that until Christmas, but as soon as we did recover from that, we were sensational that season. We were fantastic, and it was the same sort of like vibe last season. We had a bit of a slow start, and we ended up beating you at Turf Moor, and I've just said it to you on your podcast, but that game is the game where our season turned around, and more specifically, the Nick Pope penalty save from Jamie Vardy is the exact moment, in my opinion, that last season turned around, because that game turned around on that save, and the season turned around on that game. So you can pinpoint that exact moment. So fingers crossed we have like another Leicester City Nick Pope penalty save moment. But yeah, I agree with you. I do think we should be knocking on the door of the top half. I think you've got your certain teams that are going to be your clubs, your West Broms, probably your Norwiches as well when they come back up. Fulham, they never seem to really get away from it despite spending 200 million quid. And then you've got the rest of us, and I think we should be looking to try and be the top of that level. And then pushing on, like I said to you on your podcast as well, it's a shame that we didn't push on from finishing 7th, from being in the Europa League. And I know it's a difficult season when you finish in the Europa League, but it should give you that added extra status. Like, we should have been a bit more bullish in the transfer market, saying, look, we're Burnley, we're a European club now. Similar to the way that you've done since winning the league, it's transformed your club. You've become now in discussions of whether you should be replacing Arsenal or Spurs as a top 6 club, and I'm disappointed that we didn't manage to push on from finishing 7th and be in the conversation every year for a top 10 finish. But just to go back to that point about us talking about Burnley, obviously you mentioned we're 5 points off the drop. Do you think Burnley will end up being sucked into it and being relegated, or do you think we'll be safe at the end of the season?
I think you'll be safe. I up until recently, I think the bottom 3 clubs looked spot on to go down. I think Sheffield United, they might as well be preparing for next season in the Championship. I don't know what's happened to them after last season when they only just missed out on the Europa League to where they are now. My God, that's a complete change around. West Brom, and I know Leicester have sacked managers, and we got a lot of stick for sacking Ranieri after just winning us the Premier League, but we were sort of flirting with the bottom 3 at the time, and it's money, he had to go. But I think the way that West Brom got rid of Slaven Bilic was disgusting. They didn't even give him a chance, and I know Sam saved every club that he's ever been to, but I think this year, I hope they go down, to be honest with you, because of the way they did treat Bilic. I think if they'd given him time, given him sort of until past Christmas or something, but they didn't, and I think they'll come to rue that. Fulham, I thought, were down, I've got to be honest with you, but, Newcastle, they're just like...
They're in free fall, aren't
they? They are. So it's going to be those 2 plus either then Fulham or Newcastle. And I've got to be honest with you, there's a little bit of me that likes to see the big clubs struggle. When you see the likes of Newcastle go down, but the likes of Sheffield United come up, I think it's great. I still think of Leicester as a small club. We're not a big club in, we haven't got this fan base that Man United have got, or, we've got money, but not in the same way as Man City. But I like to see the big clubs struggle, and if I feel sorry for Newcastle fans because we've got absolutely fantastic owners. They've got the worst owner you could have. I do feel sorry for them, but I like to see the big. I'd love to see Fulham stay up, let's say, for example, over Newcastle.
Yeah, I think I definitely like to see the little teams do well. Probably because I'm a fan of a quote unquote smaller club myself, and I do like to see that people upset the apple cart because Twitter these days and fans, they don't see anything past the big clubs, and as soon as Burnley, like my favourite example is when Burnley went to Anfield and won at Anfield, and the same with Man United last season. These fans of these clubs are acting like they'd been liquidated and they've been relegated. They were like, it don't matter that we've lost to Burnley. I'll support them no matter what. You know what I mean? It's like that's the sort of stuff you say when you get relegated into Division 2. And it's just a ridiculous mentality. So I do enjoy seeing the little clubs.
Have you seen the Arsenal video? It was from earlier in the season, but I love to play it. And it's an Arsenal fan going mad when you beat them earlier in the season.
Yes, I have. We put it on Turfcast actually. There was two that went viral. One of the Arsenal fan TV, the usual stuff that they do on there, going mad, and then there's the guy going. But this is a perfect example of the sort of the mentality of the modern day football fan from the top six, from the big six, should I say? They're all like that, and you cannot, as a lesser club, go and win there.
It isn't just the fans, though. It's what the media perceive, and we've called ourselves the Invisibles, because we're not mentioned. I mean, Leicester could be playing Burnley on Sky, and we'd be playing, let's say, at 12 o'clock and on a Sunday, and then the game after us is Liverpool Man City. We'd hardly get a mention before.
We found that as well. Yeah, we found that as well.
And I was looking at this earlier, and this is on the BBC, right? And this was put up on the 28th of February, so yesterday, and it's by Danny Murphy, Match of the Day 2 analysis. Man United, Chelsea and Liverpool, or someone else, who will join Man City in the Premier League top four? Excuse me, Leicester are in the top four, Chelsea aren't, Liverpool aren't. We don't get mentioned. We don't get a mention till right 3/4 of the way down the bloody article. And it's the same for, I count us as still as a smallish club. And we don't, Burnley's, Leicester's, whatever we do, we don't get the credit for doing it.
No, 100%. And it's interesting to hear you say that because it's the sort of vibe that we get annoyed with as Burnley fans, as that sort of thing happens all the time to us. So it's interesting to see fans of another club sort of like seeing that sort of thing happen in the media and on Twitter. And it's just the way it is. And the most frustrating thing is, like, you see clubs like Villa and Leeds come up who are now sort of like media darlings, especially Leeds, and Bielsa's now their media darling. That's frustrating. It's so frustrating when we've been in the Premier League for 4 or 5 years, both of us. But anyway, let's look ahead to the game. Then obviously you said, as we've discussed, you've got a lot of injuries. Who can we expect to see playing for Leicester tomorrow, and what sort of style do you think Leicester are going to play tomorrow? Tomorrow at the time of listening, sorry. Tomorrow, I keep getting it wrong. Wednesday.
I tell you what, we did a watch along for the Arsenal game, and all guy was saying, "Good evening, how are we doing tonight?" Because I'm used to doing night games. It was so no, I know what you mean. He's always his favourite formation, and one that we've done the best with, is been a 4-1-4-1. Sometimes it's more of a bit of a 4-3-3-2, but a 4-3-3-1. Sorry, 4-3-3-2 would be good. We can extra an extra player on. We might win then. Casper's going to start in goal, obviously, without saying. If Evans is fit, we could see Evans start at the back. If not, it would be a Marty. And Soyuncu, who's been great. I mean, he couldn't get back in because of, he was our replacement for Maguire, and he couldn't get back in because of Fofana coming in and playing so well, but Fofana's out. So those two at centre-back. I think Thomas at left-back, He's the youngster that's come through. He was a little bit of a rabbit in the headlights against Arsenal, but no disrespect. I think he's done well up until that game, and I think he will do well and play on tomorrow. And at right back, Castagna. Going across, and then you're going to have sort of the holding midfielder. If he's fit, it's Ndidi every day of the week. He's almost the first name on the sheet. He's the nearest thing we've had to replacing Kante. He is amazing. He just breaks things up. I mean, he's still early 20s, and it's unbelievable to think how far that guy can go.
Yeah.
Then it gets interesting, because we go across the centre, and it's who we've got there. I think we're going to have Piera on the right wing, because he's played him there the last couple of times. Although he's a right back, he does like to get forward. And if you've got Piera and Castagna, they work well together. One goes forward, the other can drop back. But Piera does like to get forward and have a shot. On the other side, and here's where it gets difficult. Albrighton, we might see Albrighton back. And in the middle, Tillemans, again, every day of the week, he's going to start. The problem is, who do we there? We haven't got a obvious one to fit into that Maddison role that he normally sits there. Pratt is injured. Perez is injured. As much as we don't like Perez, but at least he could do that role. Probably we might see Chowdhury or Mendy have to fill that role again, which will allow Tillemans to get more forward because they are more defensive. And then up front, Vardy. And I think we'll see on the bench, I think we will see some youngsters going on the bench as well, say Daley Campbell, Tavares. When we played Slavia Prague the other day, he surprised us with the team that he put out. And he always put a team out that sort of said, right, I'm going to put this team out. If we're struggling, then I'm going to bring the big guns off the bench.
Yeah.
And whenever you do that, you're leaving yourself totally wide open to losing the game, which we did.
Yeah.
You should go with your big names. You can say your big names, but your fittest squad, your best squad available. When you're 1 or 2-0 up, take them off and rest them. And hopefully Brendan has learnt from that.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll go with that formation. And the only thing he might do is he might give under a run out instead. In that Maddison role, he's got a lot to prove us under. He's on loan from Roma, and something about him that Rodgers doesn't like. He hasn't been starting that many games. We may see him because he does like to get forward. So without Barnes and without Maddison, you may see under.
Yeah, well, certainly your team selection is going to be very interesting because of all the injuries. Obviously, like I've said, we've got plenty of injuries as well, but because of the lack of squad depth, pretty much writes itself. It's going to be Nick Pope in goal, Charlie Taylor left back, Matt Lawton right back, Ben Mee and Tark in the middle. Thankfully, them five are all fit and well. There's questions about Charlie Taylor's fitness because he was so poor against Spurs. Maybe he just had a poor game, but a lot of people are questioning maybe he's playing with a slight niggle. And normally Eric Peters would just come in and replace him, but now Peters is injured, so who knows? But they're just rumours anyway. Dwight McNeil on the left. In the middle is probably going to be Westy and Jack Cork again with Brownhill on the right. I don't think he should do it like that. I think we should be dropping either one of Westy or Cork, bring Brownhill in the middle. And now maybe, I weren't up for doing this at first, now maybe trying Bardsley at right back and pushing Matt Lawton into right mid because we're just lacking so much creativity on the right-hand side. Brownhill's coming in because he's naturally a central midfielder, so he's playing narrow, and then because of that, Dwight McNeil's compensating by coming in narrow as well, trying to pick the ball up behind the two strikers. And in terms of strikers, I think I think he's going to go. Wood and Jay, I would presume. Wood, I would think, will be back after a slight layoff because of an injury, because he played against Spurs for like the last 10, 15 minutes, whatever it were. I'm not even sure if Jay's fit at the minute. I think he is. Obviously, he played at the weekend, so it'll be interesting anyway. But because of the lack of squad depth, it pretty much writes itself to our squad. So that's probably what we'll go with. Whether or not he'll try and change a few things up, like I said, the right-hand side of midfield position, he might try and do something there. But as Burnley fans all know, Sean Dyche don't really like doing some different stuff. He sticks to what he knows, and then he hopes that eventually, if we are in a bad bit of form, it comes unstuck. But last thing, what we'll do is we'll get some predictions on. Obviously, I've already heard your prediction on your show. Who knows? You could have changed your mind. Yeah, I'm going to say you could have changed your mind since then. You could have thought, they've got loads of injuries. We're going to batter it.
Exactly.
But what's your prediction then for the game?
You have made me think with that, because, like I say, when we do these predictions, it's always in advance. You never know who's going to be playing and what have you. We have got so many injuries, and Vardy. If Vardy was on a rich vein of form, I'd definitely go for a win for us. Like I say, I can't see where our goals are going to come from, because Vardy isn't scoring unless he turns it round tomorrow. And then when he hasn't been scoring, Barnes and Maddison have been supplying the goals. Both of those guys are out. It is squeaky bum time for us. And I think, you guys are quite physical. And I don't mean that in a nasty way, but I think you're a strong team. You'll bully us, as we discussed in my podcast. I think it'll be a 1-1. I do. I think, and if we came away from this with a point if you gave me a point now, I would probably take it.
Yeah, I think a lot of Burnley fans would take a point as well, and I think at the risk of losing the game, if there was like you said, a hypothetical situation where I could take a point now for Burnley Football Club, I think I would take it. After the Tottenham game, I was all a little bit doom and gloom, not to the point where I think we're going to go down. I just thought we've played so badly in our last three games. There's the Fulham game, the West Brom game, and now the Spurs game, that I was just thinking, Leicester are going to murder us. Leicester are so good this season again. Now, they've got pace, they've got power, they score goals. But hearing that Harvey Barnes is out, hearing that Jamie Vardy's only a 75% chance of playing, all right, he'll probably play, but he's obviously had a knock, so he's not going to be, and anyway, he's not scoring goals. I'm slightly not confident. I'm sort of like just putting this prediction out there, but I'm going to say Burnley are going to win 1-0, but that's just because of all the injuries that you've got. I do think I'm being a little bit optimistic there with that, I am going to be honest. But it's typical Burnley. When it's backs against the wall, Burnley like to dig a result out in one of these random games. Like I said, we did it last year against Leicester. Hopefully we can do it this year against Leicester as well. But it's typical Burnley to put in a few horrific performances, then out of nowhere, just dig out a brilliant result. So obviously, fingers crossed, we can do that again on Wednesday, but I'm sure you'll disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to start winning again. I don't mind, if you beat us and we go down fighting, I think as any football fan, we accept that. The problem we've had with the last two games is our performance. And I said, after the Slavia Prague, Arsenal, we've got to come out with a performance. We did. Just unfortunately, it was a shite one. So this Burnley game is very important. But I tell you something: if nothing else this season, it's shown me I know sweet FA about football, because as much as I complain, as much as I moan, Rodgers occasionally comes along and proves that he's a tactical genius. We played Arsenal earlier in the season. We beat them at their place 1-0, and I'm thinking, why is he playing like he is? And yet we won the game. So I'm hoping that tomorrow is the time when the tactical genius of Brendan Rodgers comes out.
Yeah, well, we'll see. That's it then for this week's pre-game show. Chris, if you just want to give everyone a shout out where they can find you on all the social medias, and hopefully everyone will go and check you out.
Yeah, we're all over everywhere. Facebook, Leicester Till I Die, the group. Twitter, at Leicester TID. Website is leicestertillidie.com. And the TV channel, Leicester Till I Die TV.
So there you go. Please go and check Chris and the boys out. And Chris, I'll say it good luck for the season, but no good luck for Wednesday, unfortunately, from me, mate.
We all say the same, mate. Don't worry. Take care. Whatever you do, mate, make sure you stay safe.
Yeah, thanks, mate. You too. Cheers for coming on, and hopefully we'll see you next season.
You will be. I'm pretty sure you'll be safe, to be honest. There's worse teams.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cheers, mate.